Cool. I think we have relative critical mass, although no questions in the channel just yet. We figured it'd be appropriate to have this one since, the last time we had an AMA with Publius was right before the previous snapshot to approve the OTC terms was up. And it was going to be a few days before class on Tuesday, so wanted to have this session to surface any questions, suggestions that community members may have had over the last couple of days. But I see there's no questions in the chat at the moment. Publius, is there anything you wanted to open up with?
Sure. So while we certainly haven't been able to participate in written form in the Discord chats as much as we would normally like to, we do still read as much of it as possible and have been quite enthused by some of the ideas around the OTC structure that have been discussed. In particular, the concept of like an NFT series. I forget who it was. I want to make sure I give credit to them because it's really their idea. Hold on, I'm going to try to find it to give credit to the right person because I wrote it down. But someone in the Discord chat cited the... Man, I'm not going to be able to... Oh, here it is.
I think...
Crucible Clats. I think. Crucible Clats. Said, why not do something like 10,000 tokens for $7,700 per pod? Each token is worth 46,200 pods. Tokens are numbered, yada, yada, yada. But the concept is to facilitate the distribution and participation of this by everyone, such that anyone can buy an NFT, anyone can participate. If all 10,000 NFTs go, that's fabulous, and then Beanstalk will be fully recapitalized. This still facilitates an OTC structure because there's the same terms for everyone and shouldn't necessarily preclude the raising of capital from larger private investors, if you will. So the long and the short of it is that, over the past day or two since the last conversations we've had with the community, we're very interested in the NFT idea and feel like there's no reason not to go forward with that. So very curious for what people have to say about that, but that's what's been kind of top of mind over the past 24 hours, let's call it.
Liz, could you maybe expand on what the idea is exactly in practice a bit more for those who weren't able to read the message? Or if you have the link, you could drop it as well.
Don't have the link, but so the concept is the OTC terms that were just approved by the DAO were for the issuance of a fungible token, where for your percentage of the $77 million contributed to the recapitalization, you will receive a percentage of the total fungible token supply. So if you contribute $7.7 million, you'd receive 10% of the total fungible token supply. And those fungible tokens, as a whole, will receive 1/3 of all bean mints until the 500% weather has been paid back. And so in short, this idea is to package those fungible tokens effectively as non-fungible tokens by adding artwork on top of them, but they will still have the same economic properties as the fungible token. So to some extent, this will be a yield-bearing NFT, where the NFT will be entitled to bean mints for a period of time. So I think it's kind of cool as an innovation on the NFT front in and of itself, that you'll have something native to the protocol earning interest that is an NFT. But in addition, just think it's a cool way to get the community much more directly involved, which has been very clearly a main piece of feedback.
Awesome. And do you imagine those NFTs being able to be claimed through a UI on the bean.money site? Is that what you're imagining this looking like?
Hopefully, right? So the concept would be, and again, this is all still very much in the idea phase, but let's call it 2 weeks from tomorrow, the NFT sale could launch. And at that point, people can just start buying the NFTs, and the NFTs will be on sale for a couple of weeks. And maybe as a way to encourage earlier participation, there's some increase in the rarity of the NFTs or something like that. So there's some additional bonus you can add that's not necessarily economic, but more NFT based, but to make it fun. But I feel like this is a cool way to do it.
Makes sense. Najjak's asking the real questions in the chat, asking if we really have time to make art for 10,000 NFTs.
Short answer is we're trying to track down very high quality artists to work on this. So a couple different doors being knocked on there. But if you or anyone in the community listening to this has a strong connection to a great NFT artist that wants to grind for the next couple weeks, let us know and try to connect us. And we would just also say there's no reason necessarily that the artwork needs to be fully done at the time that the sale launches. You probably need previews or something, but you don't necessarily need all the artwork to be done. So there is a little bit of time. Maybe the NFTs all become claimable whenever Beanstalk relaunches, right? There's a couple different ways to do it.
All right, question coming in from Just a Bean. Have we gotten closer to newer commitments on the OTC side now that the snapshot has been approved?
So the short answer is closer to newer commitments. So everything that's relative would definitely say closer, but nothing additional. But there is one of the things that we highlighted was the complexity around bridging the gap between capital that doesn't have crypto and that wants to participate in this, and think that there has been some progress on structure and stuff there and on ramps. So everything is marginal, but one of the nice things about this extra time, and particularly now doing this NFT sale, is unless it sells out, there's no real rush to get things in over the next week or 2 weeks, right? So there's going to be hopefully some initial commitment up front, as we said, but otherwise this will just basically be anyone can participate.
Sages asks, how is this different from doing our barn raise in the first iteration? People could buy as little as much as they wanted. It seems like adding more layers of complexity with an NFT.
So generally, there's a couple things. This is much closer to the second iteration of the barn raise, if you will, that was just approved, the OTC version that was just approved by the DAO. This is a very similar version of that, but with, I guess you could say, a minimum in the form of one NFT. So 1/10,000th of the total amount. But economically, it's the same as the OTC structure that was just approved. And then how it's different from the barn raise is, effectively how the OTC deal is different from the barn raise, which is that instead of having a new pod line, you would have everyone be holding this fungible token that would be in the same class. And so even though there would be this non-fungible aspect to the token, the economics of it are the same as the OTC deal.
Makes sense. Yeah. And in my mind, one of the main differences is, a pod line has an inherent priority, whereas these fungible tokens wouldn't. Jams asks, would we structure and have a sell period for the NFT if we go this route? Not quite sure what Jams means by that, but
there's no reason to have a sell period, right? I don't know what that means either, but I guess I don't know what that means. So
fair. Jams, if you want to follow up in the chat, feel free to, and we can resurface your question. I think I'm at the bottom of the town hall chat, but feel free to tag me if you feel like I've missed anything. And I see several people typing, so.
Well, there's a comment about adding layers of complexity and more delays. I would argue this is not a delay whatsoever. This is expediting the timeline significantly and saying 2 weeks from now, everyone is going to be able to participate in this. So I think that's a very substantive change from the last conversation in the positive, the opposite of a delay. It's been expedited, I would say. And so a 2-week timeline to me that seems like it should be a positive change in information. And in terms of layers of complexity, you could make the argument that the complexity is that now there's a minimum size to participate, which I guess would be $7,700 for one NFT, but that's the only complexity really being added here in reality. You could say there's some additional technical complexity, but it's truly minimal, particularly given that Beanstalk has supported NFTs before. So, it's all relative, but I think this is a fun layer to add on top of this with the same economics.
Right. And you had just mentioned, I think, 2-week timeline in there somewhere. What are you referring to exactly?
Well, the thought is
2-week timeline for what?
Actually be bought. When can people start buying their NFTs, right? Like, why not have people be able to start to buy their NFTs sooner rather than later?
Definitely. All right. It looks like Jams had an amendment to his question. He says sell period as in a start and stop time period of which the NFTs will be for sale, i.e. will the NFTs be for sale for 2 weeks? If they don't sell out during that time period, everyone takes a haircut.
Correct.
That's an interesting question, I guess. When would the cutoff be?
It would still have to be a cutoff at, call it June, middle of June, something similar to the OTC deal.
Makes sense. And I assume in this case, would the barn raise be kind of abandoned as a concept, given that this format is open to everyone?
There is something to be said for, and I mean this, doing the barn raise as well, right? Like, you could say, have the barn raise, have the NFT sale, and you can do them simultaneously. I think at some point now the argument that there's too much complexity, at some point that actually does hold true. So I don't necessarily think, we would advocate for that, but that's possible. So it's not to say you can't do the barn raise, but it's probably better to keep it simple. So this would be in lieu of the barn raise. But again, the DAO has already approved this in lieu of the barn raise. This is just a slight repackaging of it. To make it a little bit more friendly to everybody.
Yeah, and I'd imagine if we did continue with the barn raise afterward, we'd have to think about kind of the 1/3 Bean Mint distribution going to the fungible tokens versus the BR pod line and things like that, I imagine.
Well, I think that's actually pretty simple, right? Let's say 50% of it sells out in this OTC version or the NFT sale. Half of the fungible tokens that would have gotten minted would get minted. And then the other half can get repackaged to support the barn raise. So there's no problem with that.
Got it. Hey, Manifold, what's up?
Economically, at least.
Hey guys, what's going on? I just wanted to add a couple comments here. So Nasdaq brought up an awesome point. Since the snapshot is approved, capital can now start coming in and trust the terms. So just wanted to publicly say, there is capital starting to come in. That's just something I'm willing to say publicly. But also, in regards to this kind of NFT concept, just to kind of clarify here, effectively what it is it's a yield bearing NFT, right? So let's say we have, and this is just an idea, this is nothing concrete, but I'm just trying to clarify the idea a bit. Let's say we have 10,000 NFTs, right? And we need to raise $77 million. So that prices each NFT at 7.7K, $7,700. Like, let's call it 2.5 ETH. And that NFT is effectively yield bearing, right? So it entitles you to up to 500% weather, right? So the NFT's value is, let's call it like $45,000, $46,000 in total in the future. Now that's effectively what we're doing anyways, but I think what Publius is kind of referring to is, hey, there's a way to make this a little bit more fun. and do an NFT, like an actual NFT collection that's marketed to a different audience as well and get people excited. As far as I know, there's not really a yield-bearing NFT on the market right now. So, there's just a lot of fun stuff you can do with that. Again, nothing's final, but I think just the spirit of the idea is kind of interesting. But it ultimately doesn't change anything that was approved with the DAO Snapshot. It's still the same OTC terms and whatnot. It's just, hey, if we want to make this a little bit more fun and opening up to a different audience, theoretically that could happen under something like this.
Yeah, and to parrot that, a lot of the main questions that were voiced over the past couple of days seem to have been around who can participate, what is the minimum size, and things like that, and felt like this is a very elegant solution to all of that.
Awesome. I think Sages has a question about the current structure versus the barn raise. He says, don't you think we could get all the pods sold at less long-term cost if lots of folks would pay for pods in the 21% interest in the barn raise case to get into the front of the line, rather than having a fixed 500% interest? So maybe, Publius, you could talk about some of the trade-offs there.
Well, it is tautological, right? If pods are sold at less cost, then de facto they're sold at less cost. But with that said, we continue to be advocates for the theory that it doesn't really matter what interest rate Beanstalk has to pay. Now, that only applies to some extent, right? You can't pay a 1,000,000% interest rate. But whether it's a 500%, 600%, 200%, 400%, it's all marginal. And when you consider what the issuance of 462 million pods, I think would be 462 million pods, that would increase the pod rate to where it was like 2 or 3 weeks prior to the attack, or less, maybe a week prior to the attack. So it's all marginal.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think the pod rate math came out to something like 1,100%, but don't quote me on that. All right, Neltar has a question. The rationale for the OTC deal was to get as much external capital before needing to do a barn raise. Will the NFT route also carve out NFT supply against the amount of OTC capital raised and sell only the rest of the NFTs?
Yes. Now, this goes back to the question of how does capital actually participate? So the short answer is this is something that's being figured out, is if there's a bank wire received somewhere, should that be bookmarked, or should that just, does it have to be converted into crypto and then sent to the contract account? That part actually hasn't really been figured out. More inclined to say until you've sent the money to the contract, it doesn't count, but unclear.
All right. Triggs asks, any long-term utility for the NFT after the 500% weather has been repaid?
No idea. Hopefully you can use it in the Bean metaverse.
Exactly, a piece of memorabilia. All right. Justabine asks, does the community-wide NFT sale reduce our ability to negotiate? Seem to remember that community-driven raise was being kept in the back pocket for OTC negotiations.
The short answer is think that the structure of this is likely to be symbiotic, as opposed to the barn race, which was like a 10-day thing, quick and dirty. The fact that this is going to be more of a month-long thing to happen over time as capital starts to come in both on-chain and off-chain, I think it's more likely to be symbiotic. That is just an opinion, though.
So do you think it's mostly symbiotic due to the nature of this this version having a longer sale period, or is there anything else to it?
Well, there's a couple things. It's like multiple people reached out and were like, we are interested in participating OTC, but at smaller sizes than the $5 to $15 million tranches the DAO would probably book directly. And so the question is then, trying to get them to organize themselves into larger tranches. There's a lot of friction there. And so while there's clearly demand from the community, in addition to demand from venture, the thought is to put them both out there and start to not necessarily compete against one another, but demonstrate at similar times that there's interest from both parties. I think that will go a long way. And then the month-long period, or maybe even more, maybe you can get the opening period even started this Monday. That may be too soon. Not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. You know, it's a little bit of game theory, but more of a behavioral side of things. But I think it'll be fun.
And just want to clarify one point because somebody just asked me in a DM. So this also has no delay in terms of calling capital. Like, if there's capital being committed, like we're calling that capital. We're not waiting for an NFT sale 2 weeks down the line, or there's no delay in the process. This is just kind of this fun idea that could be launched in a few weeks or something like that. But in terms of the logistics of calling capital and the timeline, like that's full green light now since the snapshot was passed.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Let's see. RG asks, what crypto would be used to buy the NFT, possibly USDC? I imagine the answer to that is to be determined, but I'll defer to you, Publius.
TBD.
Cool. All right, from JDub. So the fungible token would be a way to lock in 500% weather and would be paid off evenly across all NFT holders. Please walk through what it will be like for NFT holders. Each NFT will yield 7.7K times 500% weather pods, and those pods will mature at 1/3 mint going to NFTs. I imagine pods are kind of out of the equation.
So let's say
wallet
you
holding,
hold this
yeah, go ahead.
NFT. Let's say you hold one of these 10,000 NFTs and Beanstalk mints 1,000,000 beans. You're going to be entitled to 1/10,000th of that. So you're going to get 100 beans. Now those beans will be, just like when your pods harvest, they're claimable beans, and you can either deposit them, you can sell them, you can do whatever you want with them. That will be the case for those 100 beans. And that will happen for all of the beans that will be minted under your NFT, which is 7,700 times 6. So again, I think that's like 46,200 or something.
Makes sense. All right, I see a comment about, or maybe not a question directly, but maybe Publius, you can comment on if you feel like current market conditions are affecting the fundraise in any way.
Definitely. I mean, the total shit show across TradFi and crypto markets at the moment, and it'd be hard to argue that isn't hurting things. But such is life.
Indeed. All right, from Jams, if we're opening a Pandora's box with an esoteric yield-bearing NFT, is the NFT code going to be audited prior to distribution?
So, just to jump in here, the yield-bearing portion actually doesn't have anything to do with the NFT contract itself. The yield-bearing portion is a part of Beanstalk that is already written and will be a part of the ongoing audits. Whether we use a fungible or non-fungible token, it really doesn't matter as far as the yield-bearing goes. It just, needs a way to determine your balance of the token, and that's the same for an ERC20 or an ERC721. In terms of the NFT contract itself, it'll be a very standard NFT contract. We'll likely use the contract Azuki used and, just fork that with minor modifications such that when you transfer an NFT, it, goes ahead and claims your share of beans so that, you don't essentially lose any unclaimed beans when you transfer. But other than that, on the NFT side, there'll be very little custom code.
Very helpful. Thanks, Publius. J-Dub's just commenting It's a great solution that brings together both OTC demands with community requests and ensuring involvement. And I would just echo that sentiment. I'm excited about this path. See, RG asks, why do you mention 2 weeks from tomorrow to start the sale? Why not after all the audits are complete?
Well, so ultimately, this is just capital being raised. This has nothing to do with the audits themselves, right? So the distribution of the yield, as Publius was saying, the structure around that will be audited, but the NFT sale or the capital raise, the barn raise, whatever that was always going to happen before the audit. So that nothing there has changed.
All right. Triggs has a comment on the artwork. I'm just reading through to the bottom. Is this a priority in the discussions around bringing an artist to submit their work?
Particularly the commission. The details of commissions on trades of the NFTs are critical to get set up first before launching the NFTs. If we are hiring artists to create artwork, they should be able to be rewarded financially if a viable secondary market is created for their artwork. That's a great idea. Who could argue with that? Don't have really any thoughts on that. Don't have a lot of experience with NFTs. So yeah, great thought. Would be curious for what other people think.
And, kind of one beauty of the NFT portion is, there will by default be an opportunity to, buy and sell these NFTs on OpenSea without having for us to, find a way to create a liquidity pool. So that'll create liquidity for the tokens, which will allow, some commission if desired by the community to be taken at the point of sale on OpenSea. We're also exploring building our own native NFT market, but, that might be a more long-term plan. But the DAO will have permission to vote on a commission at the point of sale on the OpenSea platform if we want.
Yeah, that's a great point. The NFT marketplace infrastructure is already there. Warthog asks, should we call this NFT sale the barn raise? We're still raising the barn, just using an NFT offering
I'd say
instead of
yes.
selling pods.
I'd say yes. Why not?
Sounds good to me.
That's up to y'all. I just work here. Fun stuff, guys. We're all just trying to figure this out together, These are just ideas, but think it's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, is there anything in this idea that you've proposed today that you think would have to be run through and approved by the DAO via Snapshot again? Or do you think the last one was, I don't know, sufficiently covers that ground?
I mean, we always tend to err on the side of more approval is better than less approval, but don't think that there's anything under this plan that contradicts what was approved in the last plan. I think there's probably something to be said for another proposal to greenlight this official NFT barn raise, but fuck yeah. Let's document it. Why not? Why not get the DAO's approval?
Sweet. Yeah, it should be a pretty brief one. I think I'm at the bottom of Town Hall chat again. Let me know if I missed anything. I see a few folks typing. But yeah, also by participating in the, for calling it the barn raise now, I guess you are getting, upside in the speculative future of the Bean metaverse whenever that comes around. All right, Manifold, this might be one for you. What does capital coming in mean exactly? Are they referring to commitments coming in or new conversations? Anything in between?
Both. So, USD and or USDC coming in, and lots of new conversations. I mean, guys, we're we're talking like family offices, like all sorts of funds across the globe at this point. It's pretty remarkable how word of this raise has spread throughout like so many networks. So we're still like having conversations with a new set of deep pocketed investors like every day, and we have that continuing all week. So to answer the question, yes, we do have capital coming in, and then we also have new capital conversations coming. So yeah.
Great. Thanks for clarifying. And as usual, folks are also welcome to raise their hand and come up to the stage if they want to ask live. All right, it looks like you have another one, Manifold. Are we still at the 15% committed mark, or has that increased?
I think roughly the same right now. I mean, that number was thrown out on Friday, right?
Yes,
Yes.
it's only been a few days.
Yeah, roughly the same. Hopefully that number goes up this week, though, obviously.
All right. RG asks, how do you ensure that the majority of the NFT sale won't go to a single entity?
Well, you can't necessarily ensure it. Those are good problems to have. You can probably put a limit on the number of NFTs a single wallet can purchase, but that obviously doesn't really help you. So don't have a good answer for that one.
To piggyback off that though, like we are actively seeking a diverse group of capital and participants. So like we would prefer 5 parties that invest $10 million each than one party that invests 50 million, if that makes sense. So while we can't like kind of explicitly guarantee that, I guess like I think we're all making a conscious effort to keep the cap table as diversified as possible.
Definitely. All right. Just Bean asks, could you talk a little bit about the number of conversations being had? Wait, let's see. They're curious about a couple things, like I guess awareness of the fundraise, folks considering the fundraise, and where in the process some of these investors are. They say just looking for a little more transparency on where in the funnel these conversations are.
It's hard to, I mean, this is just my opinion, and this may sound crass. It's hard to imagine being more transparent other than telling you like who we're talking to on a daily basis, Like there's endless conversations. Some people are saying no, some people are pop up and are re-enter the funnel. There's an endless stream of people at different stages of the funnel at this point. So it's very hard to give anything more substantive than that. It's like it's a revolving door of interest basically. People go between 1, 2, and 3, and then back to 2, and then back to 3. I mean, it's crazy what's going on. So very hard to be more specific, and don't mean that in a way of like it's just like other than telling you, oh, we spoke to so and so today, we spoke to so and so yesterday. It's like haven't spoken to them again since Thursday. It's like how much more information can we provide?
Hey,
Some big capital just texted me to call them right now, and I'm like, I'm on the call with the DAO right now. So is that helpful? Like, we're trying here. We're trying. I think Manifold, myself, all we do is work on this. So it's like we're on calls all day. Who are we on calls with? Endless different people.
All right, I see a few questions rolling in, but I see Sync up on the stage. How's it going, Sync?
Hey, Austin. Do you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Great. Yeah, just wanted to say, I would encourage everybody to listen to the recent Twitter Spaces that OSFI coordinated between Publius and Manny. Uh, Personally, I love this idea of yield-bearing NFTs kind of representing the capital raised through this OTC arrangement that the DAO agreed to, and I think it really builds on the economic ideas that Manny was talking about with respect to metaverse and that Publius was engaging with him on. So just check that Twitter Spaces out. Really interesting as far as the possibilities. I think this really opens up a lot of interesting, creative opportunities for Beanstalk moving forward.
Agreed. That one was a fun listen. We should set up more of those, or as many as we can. All right. Jams asks, how would the NFT sale work logistically in congruence with OTC conversations? Would we earmark OTC committed capital prior to the public NFT sale? I imagine that these OTC conversations would need to end prior to the public NFT sale for this to work.
Correct. They would have to end prior to the. Oh wait, no. They would have to end prior to the end of the public NFT sale, not the beginning of the public NFT sale. So I think these can happen simultaneously, in short. And there can be NFTs that are bookmarked when capital that is committed in some capacity but isn't necessarily on chain yet. We can figure that out. But that'll be something that'll be figured out. Those are details that hopefully will be figured out over the next couple days now that this idea is coming into form.
And maybe this is something you're still thinking about, but how long did you think that NFT sale period would last?
Well, whenever it starts until mid June, let's call it maybe. So, yeah. So almost a month. If it needs that, I don't know. I don't know anything about NFTs, so maybe you guys would have better ideas about that.
Yeah, something to think about.
Yeah, this is not our expertise. Like how to drum up the most hype for the NFT sale. That the community should. Like, we can learn a lot from you guys on this one, but the economics of it, that we feel pretty good about.
Let's see. I'm looking at Warthog's question. If you have committed capital from various investors, you could allocate NFTs to those parties prior to release of NFTs for general purpose, right? Hopefully some of those deals would be in writing prior to the NFT sale. I suppose you sort of touched on that, but perhaps expand.
Yeah, again,
bit.
not exactly sure on the details there, but we'll hopefully get more clarity on that over the next day or so. What earmarking would look like if there's a written agreement or something, even if it may take a couple weeks for the capital to come through. Yeah, unclear. Right. That's more the nitty gritty.
Question from Max So. Will there be an interface to watch NFT sales and OTC commitments in real time? Could be a useful marketing tool as capital rolls in.
Faux show. Now, the OTC commitments are harder to know what's like in, right? Pen to paper in theory is in. But yeah, definitely there will be an interface to do the NFT stuff. Are y'all excited or what? Ever since we read this idea, it was like, how could you not do this idea? It was just so intuitive. Once you read it, it's like, oh my god.
Lots of good energy in the chat for those listen on Spotify later. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Just Bean asks, should the DAO pass any snapshots to ensure folks who are working through this period are paid for their efforts once Beanstalk restarts?
That's a great question, Just Bean, and honestly don't know the right answer here. There have been a lot of contributors that have continued to work on Beanstalk after the hack and with no real expectation of being paid because the beans are worthless, and it's like, yeah, there's, the amount of people that showed up and have continued to show up even after all the money was gone has been amazing. Now, there has been some money returned from the Ukraine, which is amazing. So there was already a DAO snapshot, as far as I'm aware, to allocate the 300,000 beans that Beanstalk had, or excuse me, 300,000 USDC that Beanstalk Farms had to be used for expenses and stuff. But as far as we're aware, it would make sense to us for there to be required additional snapshots for people to get paid for the work they're doing now, whether that's payment upon the restart of beans in the form of new beans, whether that's a portion of the very limited USDC that Beanstalk Farms has. That's something we haven't really spent much time thinking about, to be honest. Although it's very important that all of the contributors are, able to sustain themselves during this period of time, even if the beans that they were going to get paid in are kind of worthless. So it's a difficult thing to navigate, but ultimately think that the DAO should definitely vote on something like that, because people are working, and in particular, there's some people that are, it's amazing the work that's going on. We've been blown away by it. Like, you can't believe how hard people are working with no guarantee of any sort of anything, given the circumstances.
Agreed, and would just echo back the same sentiment to you guys. Hugh suggests adding a share to Twitter feature as part of the Mint UI. That sounds like a great idea. Love it.
At Silo Chat. At Cool Beans.
Exactly. The Jams asks, what are next steps to memorialize the NFT route? I think someone mentioned a snapshot vote, and if a vote is actually necessary to go this route. I think we were saying we probably want to get this in writing in some capacity, in which case, if the writing is there, we might as well put a stamp on it by the DAO. But do you have anything to add there, Publius?
Yeah, from our perspective, again, more is better in this case. So maybe there should be something short written up and voted on, just to get the total green light. But from our perspective, there's no reason not to do this, or to assume that this hasn't already been approved given the current snapshot. But yeah, might be good to have another one. But it's, good, better, best.
Right. All right, idea from the Black Knight. An idea could be a wallet whitelist for existing Bean investors who could be part of the NFT launch but would have an opportunity to gain an NFT with specific traits or rewards. Now we're talking.
Now we are talking.
Gotta collect these somewhere. I'll note them down and share them with the team, folks at Beanstalk Farms working on the NFTs.
What was the floor on the NFTs before the attack, Like, we're not even talking about that much of a premium on just the NFTs. Now you're talking about yield on top of it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, agreed. And one of the things that made it click for me is when other playlists mentioned how we, have access to marketplace infrastructure already to make it tradable, which is awesome.
Lots of cool stuff. Lots of cool stuff.
Will the NFTs be tradable? Yes. Well, OpenSea will already do that for us, but perhaps it makes sense eventually to one day have our own Beanstalk native zero fee marketplace. If anyone's interested in working on that, feel free to reach out to us. And then the sages also asked a way to figure out the value of them. Imagine us leaning on that marketplace to determine that. But Publius, if you want to take that
Buyers
one.
and sellers, that we can't comment on, but the buyers and sellers will determine the value.
Right.
Also, yeah, we just want to give Syncubate a big shout out. This is like they've been harassing everyone. Everyone knows Syncubate's been on our tail for a long time about the concept of an NFT as a yield bearing instrument. Now, I think their long term vision is to have a permanent deposit, but we're 90% of the way there. So, want to give them a shout out for this as well, in addition to Crucible Clat. And thanks, Bean Bankman Refried, for shouting them out as well in the chat. They deserve. Hey, the cool thing about this, guys, is every part of this has ultimately been in response to and a result of community feedback across the board. So, we're just we're all trying to do our best here, I would say, and it's a team effort.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. First, it was the LUSD pool. Next, it was the yield-bearing NFTs, and I was skeptical of the perma-locked deposits, but who knows? Looks like Sync is building a pretty good track record.
The idea man strikes again.
Exactly. Sages asks, just by holding the NFT, I will somehow get beans deposited into my account or your wallet address. I imagine the answer is
not
yes.
deposited into your account, but your wallet address, yes. So not into the silo, but they'll effectively be harvestable beans, or the equivalent of.
Will you have to claim them?
Yes.
Got it.
And when you claim them, you can immediately deposit them or do whatever you want with them. And the general farm functionality should be live. So be able to do somewhat arbitrary things with them at the time.
What would be an example of that when you say arbitrary things?
Take your bean yield, sell them into ETH, deposit that ETH into an LUSD trove or a liquidity trove, mint LUSD, add LUSD to an LUSD bean pool if it's relaunched, and then, maybe even deposit that LUSD bean LP in Convex before you deposit the Convex LUSD bean in the silo. So that's our favorite example to always throw out there, but that could be live. The liquidity trove probably won't be live upon relaunch, but that's one example of the type of thing that should be possible through the farm functionality. So maybe the short-term example is just taking your beans and depositing them in various LP tokens or something like that. I guess there would be one LP token upon relaunch, but you get what we're saying.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sages also asks, seems better. Would it be better to have those new bean mints from the NFTs deposited into the silo so there's less sell pressure? Probably less gas intensive for the protocol. Also, imagine sending beans to wallet addresses daily. Sounds expensive.
Well, so in particular, they won't be sending the beans to the wallet addresses daily. They'll just be claimable beans, right? So they'll be the same state as like a harvestable bean. So when your pods harvest, they become harvestable, which is effectively a circulating bean, but they're not in your wallet unless you claim them. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, yeah. Sages also says yes. All right. Let's let's see, Wilco Lackpole, I probably butchered that one, asks, perhaps a dumb question, what happens to Bean currently in circulation? I think they're subject to the same vesting schedule. Is that right?
Well, currently in circulation is different than in circulation in the block prior to the attack, right? So currently in circulation, nothing happens to them. But if you had beans in circulation in the block prior to the attack, then you, upon restart, will receive some pro rata portion based on the percentage of the system that's recapitalized, some vesting beans that are circulating. And then you can deposit them in the silo while they're vesting or not, but you'll have vesting beans.
Sweet. Let's see. Dees asks, are we making a new NFT collection from the one we prepared for the barn raise, or can we build upon the one we were finalizing last week? Is the theme still rebuild/rebirth, etc.?
Honestly, don't know on this one. I think there's been some conversations to get some serious NFT artists involved in this, but don't really have any real answer there yet.
Mod, I'm not sure what your question is in response to, if you want to expand on it. Okay, so he's referring to the newly minted beans from the NFT. I guess the same question as the Sages, why not deposit them automatically versus having to claim them? I suppose you already answered that one, but
Well, it's debt, right? It's debt. So in the system, the way debt is repaid is in the same structure.
right. Not everyone might want to make
there's
that
no
decision.
compounding interest on debt repayment, you know?
All right. Yeah, I think we should call this new fundraise the barn raise instead. I'm all for that. All right, well, we have a few minutes left before the end of the hour, but don't see anyone typing in the chat. Perhaps I'll pause just for a moment if anyone wants to raise their hand or type anything else out, and then we can wrap up. Or not, if there's many more questions. All right, a question from NPS. Is it possible to restart Bean on another L2?
In theory, but that wouldn't make much sense to us for a lot of different reasons. Beanstalk development on ETH mainnet is the priority for a lot of different reasons at the moment. You know, L2 development has always been something to focus on in the future.
All right, well, suppose we'll pause for just another moment, see if Mod finishes his thought. All right, Mod's doubling down. So regarding the new bean mints for the NFTs, he asks, why do we have to pay debt that way? Wouldn't it be the same if the user keeps claiming the beans?
Again, anything is possible. This just wasn't how it was implemented, and the code has at this point been prepared for the auditors.
Very practical answer. All right, Jams asks, is finding an NFT artist a significant barrier here? If Beanstalk Farms has NFTs going already, should we use those?
It's definitely not a barrier, and that's a conversation that will be had over the next day or two as well, probably.
Awesome. Well, all right, a couple more folks typing. I'll just plug as we wrap up here. I think Dumpling and IPO and Chill are hosting a social hour of sorts a couple hours from now in the construction site. I'm not sure if they're going to hop over to Gather Town like they did last time, but we'll have to defer to them there. But you can find them in the construction site in a couple hours, and then we should have class scheduled as usual on Tuesday. All right, why don't we do this last one and then we'll wrap up. Hammer asks, secondary sales of NFTs typically generate a commission back to the originator. Should we assume those funds will go to the recapitalization as well? So I think we commented on this a little bit earlier. It could be possible to incentivize the artist with a secondary sales fee, but do you want to add anything there, Publius?
Nothing really to add. These are the finer details, but don't think that's... I don't know is the short answer. Probably not.
All right, well, unless anyone has any objections, we can go ahead and wrap up there. As mentioned, happy hour in a couple hours. Otherwise, we'll see you all in class on Tuesday. Thanks for coming, everyone. And hope I did okay as host.
Austin, you crushed it.
All right, see y'all.